But to Cleveland's side. Ooh, to Cleveland's side. You know, folks who have listened to the show or watched the show long enough know that I am, let's just say I'm not overly sympathetic to Cleveland, Ohio. I don't dislike them as people. I want to go and put that out there. I don't think the people of Cleveland are just awful human beings. I just think they're delusional about their sports. So it's so funny. And many of the folks, and it is Overreaction Monday. It's the biggest Overreaction Monday of the year that isn't the Super Bowl, day after the Super Bowl. But those who believed in the Browns, this was my question. Okay. Nick Chubb's beat up. The offensive line is not as good as it's been in previous years. Myles Garrett's phenomenal. The defense is phenomenal. You still have one of the worst quarterback situations in the NFL. Kevin Stefanski's a great coach. That's where it ends. And it's so Cleveland Browns. This is what the Cleveland Browns do, and it's who they frankly are, is the fact that Baker Mayfield, who, for the record, full transparency, my record on this show says it, I was not high on Baker at all up until last season. I thought he wasn't terribly athletic. The arm strength left some things to be desired. At the time, prior to last year, his maturity was a real question. We remember that going back to the draft when he was coming out of Oklahoma. But as it turns out, the problem was, as always, my apologies, Baker, you weren't the issue, my man. It was Cleveland who was the issue. We can show you Deshaun since becoming a Brown and Baker since leaving the Browns, the numbers. Here you go. Baker, 44 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson, 17. Baker, 18 picks. Deshaun, 11, albeit in way less games. Baker, 6,400 yards. Watson, 2,300. Baker completes 63% of his passes. Watson, 59. Baker, 90 passer rating. Watson, 78. And then Baker, 1-1 in the playoffs. Deshaun Watson has yet to get there, so he is, of course, 0-0. And it comes back to this for the Cleveland Browns. and they may have an out that I'll detail in just a second. But they are really, barring this out that I'll detail in just a second, they're really screwed. So they owe Deshaun Watson $27.9 million this year. That's not bad. It's over. Even that's too much for a guy like Deshaun, but that's not going to kill your team necessarily in terms of the salary cap. The next 2 years will. In 2025 and 2026, the Cleveland Browns are going to pay, in those years individually, $72.9 million. Deshaun Watson, over the next 2 seasons, is going to make nearly $150 million because the Browns fully guaranteed his contract, because that's what Cleveland does. They took a guy who already had character issues to begin with, who already was, let's be diplomatic here and call him a little bit creepy, took that guy and said, hey, we're going to move on for Baker. We're not going to draft a quarterback because we kind of suck at that. We're going to take the guy who, with the exception of the Miami Dolphins and the Atlanta Falcons, nobody wants anything to do with. The Texans couldn't wait to move off Deshaun Watson. We'll take him. And we're going to mortgage the future of the franchise so that the Texans can build their roster into being a Super Bowl contender out of the AFC. One that, who knows, maybe could contend with the Kansas City Chiefs and win that conference. This is so Cleveland Browns. And I remember last year going back and forth with Browns fans here on YouTube, on social media. Oh, he hasn't played enough games. That's his fault. What are we talking about? He held out in 2021 because he wanted to be traded from Houston. 2022, he was suspended for the first, I believe, 11 games. Oh, I don't know, because he was shady off the field, to put it mildly. Last year, he got hurt because he has an injury history dating back to college. And this is the guy the Browns gave essentially Dak Prescott's new contract to 2 years ago. And they fully guaranteed the whole darn thing. I mean, this is, listen, I make fun of Browns fans. Not Browns fans, I'm sorry. Cleveland sports fans often. Their misery gives me joy. They're so darn obnoxious. Nice people, but gosh darn are they not obnoxious. There's a just teensy little bit of me, just teensy little bit, that kind of feels bad for the fans. The fans didn't ask for Deshaun Watson. It's a classic Cleveland Browns. It doesn't matter who the GM is or the owner, the coach. Stefanski, I think, is great, by the way. Hadn't made a couple of mistakes yesterday, but I think Stefanski's a great coach. the organizational structure, the low self-esteem of the Browns. They felt that the only chance they had to land a franchise quarterback is the guy who was already on a big contract to begin with. And then they gave him, at the time, the largest guaranteed contract in the history of the National Football League. I mean, again, they owe him $27 million this year. They owe him over $140 million over the next 2 seasons after this year. Now, the out, you heard me a few minutes ago mention the out for Deshaun, or for the Browns. Apparently today, I mean, this guy's a creep. There's a report that Deshaun is being sued for alleged sexual assault and battery while on a date in October of 2020. And a quote here from Pro Football Talk says, quote, "It's possible that Watson could be subject to further scrutiny under the personal conduct policy. It's also possible that a suspension, if one is imposed, could give the Browns a path toward voiding his remaining salary guarantees and ending the relationship." So by Deshaun's alleged own doing, at least in this instance, the Browns may be able to get out of this. Maybe. We'll see. But as of right now, we can argue about who's worse, but the worst contract between Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. I mean, this, not only is he bad, folks, if you watch that game, did you see Amari Cooper? Did you see some of those Browns offensive linemen? Did you see the body language of that Cleveland offense, even early in the game, even before it got out of hand? Did you see how they just kind of lumbered around? And I mean, I saw Amari Cooper once like roll his eyes at Deshaun Watson. I mean, they don't like the guy at all. Not only because he's creepy, but he's a terrible quarterback. I don't know what happened in the last 4 years, because in 2020, he had statistically one of the more impressive seasons in NFL history. I don't know what happened, but he is, I mean, there are discussions. Is Jameis Winston better? Gosh darn right, Jameis Winston's better. Absolutely. And Baker's significantly better since leaving Cleveland. So again, not that I haven't apologized to Baker before. I'll apologize to you again, my man. Cleveland was the problem, not you. Not you. And by the way, Carolina was the problem too when you were there briefly. Sean McVay kind of helped revitalize Baker's career. He goes to Tampa, and he's out here slinging 4 touchdowns against Washington yesterday. Baker was great, and this is just classic Cleveland Browns. And I feel bad for the young quarterback whether it's next year, year after that, who knows. The next quarterback that has to inherit that trash franchise, God bless him. Feel bad for him. Unbelievable. The low sports self-esteem that is Cleveland, Ohio, has infiltrated the Cleveland Browns and has for, well, really since Jim Brown left. It's unbelievable. I mean, they are a joke. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.